Hello and welcome to the Mental Edge College Athlete Membership webinar here. My name is Chad Hermansen. I'm a former Major League Baseball player. I played professional baseball for about 13 years and was a scout with the Angels for about 8 years. So spent about over 20 years in professional baseball, navigating not only the physical aspects of being an athlete, but of course the mental and the emotional up and downs and the turmoil right of being an athlete. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my background and dive into what I'm trying to work on and accomplish with the athletes that I'm working with all over the country. So as we kind of go through this, I want to give you my background. So I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been out here since I was a kid, and I was really a shortstop coming up in my little league days and in my career. And then I think it was end of my sophomore year in high school. My high school coach, who was very well known, he had coached a lot of local major league players like Greg Maddux and Tyler Houston, a lot of guys here in the Las Vegas community that were very successful in playing the big leagues. So our coach had come over to a new school, and he was kind of this tough, rugged kind of guy. And we were starting to win. And we actually, in our second year the school was open, we actually started to win our first of 6 straight state championships. So baseball scouts started to come around a little bit and started to notice and pay attention to the young players. And so I was very fortunate, as young as 14 years old, my freshman year in high school, I started to develop a relationship with some scouts because they liked what they had seen on the field, and they started to talk to me a little bit. But at the end of my sophomore year, my coach comes up to me and he taps me on the shoulder and basically says, "Hey, I want you to be my shortstop. Our shortstop is graduating, and I need you to take control, take the reins, because I think if you can play shortstop, you're going to have a really good chance of playing at the next level. And from what I'm hearing from scouts, they really like you. So this could only enhance, right, your value." So I was really excited about that. And so I kind of took it upon myself. And I remember in that moment, one of my first mental game kind of thoughts that I had, and I was getting 15 years old when this happened. I was like, okay, Chad, like your job and your goal, let's make your goal like be the best shortstop you can be. Let's see how good you can be. So that was a really inner challenge that I took upon myself. And fast forward within 2 years, I was very fortunate enough to be the top shortstop in the country that year, and I was drafted 10th overall by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So this was the 1995 draft, and so that was, of course, an amazing experience. My senior year was just crazy. It was bonkers with agents, scouts, colleges. Before I committed to a college, I committed to the University of Miami, which is a big haul coming from Las Vegas all the way across the country. But my heart, my mind was really set on being a professional athlete. Now, being drafted at 17, I felt completely confident. Had a little bit of, I would say some swagger to me. Like I believed I was really good. And so, of course, playing at that high level, that's really requirements. You have to believe that you can go out and do those things. So fast forward through my minor league career, I would had a lot of different successes and a lot of different struggles. And so I know being a shortstop and I was really able to catch everything, I had a lot of issues with my throwing, right? I was throwing the ball all over the place and I was making errors left and right. And so it was one of those things where it started to really get to me, and my mental game was really faltering. And this was back in 95, 96, 97. And in those days, we didn't have any mental coaches or mental skill coaches to go to. I had heard of sports psychologists, right? And there was really only a couple books out at that time. There's like Mental Game of Baseball, and Heads Up Baseball had, I think, just come out at that time. So I started to dive into those books a little bit, and they were great. They're amazing. But there was no one-on-one coaching. There was no like specific tool or just having conversation with somebody that I could kind of share the way I was thinking, share how I was feeling, and just kind of really, really down on myself. And so again, I seem to always be the youngest player in the minor leagues in that specific league, but I had a lot of success hitting. I was hitting a lot of home runs, did have some strikeouts, but For a shortstop hitting with power, that was pretty rare. The guys that we were seeing do that in the big leagues, you might remember the names of Alex Rodriguez, Nomar Garcia Parra. Jeter was one of those. Not as much power as those guys. Alex Gonzalez. So they started to kind of see me as one of those guys that could potentially fit into that category as a shortstop. Well, fast forward between my year of 17, my rookie ball year, my short season A ball year, low A, high A, and then into double A. I had about a year and a half to 2 years of really trying to just struggle through playing shortstop. When you're making errors and you're just really down on yourself and you're maybe even losing games, the your confidence just is crushed, right? And you're not really sure what to do. I remember a lot of phone calls to my parents, like, I don't know what to do. Um, I don't know who to ask. I mean, do I call my agent? And I always was thinking, well, there's something wrong with me, or there is something. I didn't want to be labeled as soft either, right? So I'm a professional athlete, right? I'm a teenage professional athlete doing amazing things, but also I'm kind of struggling here, and then I could use some help. But you could just say I didn't know how to ask, and so my coaches would just kind of always keep it very fundamental, like it's your feet. Um, it's the way your alignment is. There was nothing ever about your mind, your mental game. So it's just kind of interesting, right? Even at the professional level at that age. And um, so I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just try to figure it out. But kind of fast forward to my double A year when I was 19 years old in double A. Um, we're a couple, I don't know, weeks, months into the season, and I'm doing okay. I'm kind of making my way through, but every day was a struggle. Hitting pretty well still, making a lot of hard contact, hitting home runs, but the defensive side was just killing me. And so I finally went to my double A hitting coach, or my double A manager, and I told him, I go, I got to get out of shortstop. My heart was really set on playing center field. I felt that's where my talent probably was best suited. I loved to play center field when I was younger. So they, made a call to the GM, and being a first round pick, of course, they're like, yeah, we'll put you out there tonight. Right, no problem. And so that happened right away. And I settled into that very quickly, got very comfortable. I could easily read balls off the bat. I could really run. I had center fielder speed. So I just felt like I was home, and it felt like I could kind of relax and just get into being me, right? And being out there. And so kind of during that whole process, we were there was just this confidence builder, this pressure that I felt, and then I got up to the big leagues, and it was just a whole other experience as well. And so I got up, I basically kind of gave up playing, you know, the middle infield there a little bit, and then I went on to play the outfield that whole double A season for a couple more months, and then the team came back to me and asked me like, "Hey, Chad, we want to see if you can play second base." And so my heart just kind of like sunk. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. We never fixed the problem, right? I was just out there. Let's just throw them in the outfield and let's just figure it out. So my mind in that moment was completely like, well, I'll do the best I can. I want to be a good team player, right? I want to be the coachable kid, the good dude, kind of a yes guy, yes man to, or yes, sir, if you will, to the coaches and the organization. But in my heart, I was like, this is not going to work out. But in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if this does work out, maybe now you could be a power hitting second baseman. You might have a chance to be an all-star and go on and to do, maybe some good things at the big league level. But I didn't truly believe it. I didn't have that true confidence, and it felt like a lot of pressure. So kind of went through that whole process. And so um, I'm going to really fast forward through my major league career. Played in the big leagues for about 3 years total, and that was spread out over 6 seasons. When I became an outfielder, the Pirates has always been a kind of a struggling organization, and I was hitting a ton of home runs, even in Triple. I think I hit 60 home runs in 2 years in AAA. I was in Nashville, and that gave me the label as the top outfield power hitting prospect they've had since Barry Bonds. So if you follow and know who Barry Bonds is, right, could arguably be the best hitter ever. He's the best hitter I ever seen. Obviously, there could be some enhancements there, but he was just an amazing hitter, just a whole different level. And so there was pressure Um, at least I interpret it as pressure when I kind of went through that process, and I didn't really know how to handle it. I did the best I could under the circumstances, but it just always felt like a lot to me. So as we kind of went through that experience, the the mental game, I just kind of started to notice like, damn, there's a missing piece here that is kind of going through my mind. And um, as we went through that whole process too, I went and had some changes in my swing. The second day in the big leagues, I got there at 21. I had my best year ever. My second year in AAA, got up there, and my coach wanted to change my swing the second day, and so I was just really confused and didn't really know who I was. And as a 21-year-old, you're like, man, I don't know how to handle all this. Like I feel like I've always hit, I've always done well. Nobody's really teaching me anything more than I guess you just got to go out and do, which is understandable, right? But the mental game I was starting to notice, there were players that I felt were maybe less talented than me, but they had so much confidence in themselves, and they had this true belief. They had this mental edge about them that I was like, man, I need to find that. I need to get that. And so I kind of stopped worrying about, okay, if there's no really help available, I'm gonna have to figure this out on my own. So I started to dive into the mental game kind of toward the end of my year. Certainly had some injuries, some surgeries. I did not become the next Barry Bonds. You likely have never heard of me as a player unless you've been really involved in the 2000s, in Major League Baseball. So I was one of those top prospects that didn't become an all-star every year or anything like that. First round pick that got to the big leagues, but just had a lot of struggles. So I had the talent, I had all the tools. I scouted for 8 years with the Angels. Part of the scouting process, right? Those five tools: hit, field, hit for power, run, all those things. Those five tools there. Um, that was I checked those boxes no problem. My hit tool average wise might have been a little bit lower, but I had the power. I could run, I could throw. My accuracy was not great, of course, but I had those tools, and I was a good teammate. I felt I had strong character, and I wanted to win and go out and be the best I could. But my mental game was definitely lacking, and my overall belief in myself was very up and down. And so I wanted to do something about that. And when COVID hit, after about 8 years of scouting for me, COVID hit and I got furloughed. I got furloughed by the Angels. And during that process, while I was scouting, I I just kind of randomly would get calls from local, here in the Las Vegas area from parents like, hey, Chad, do you mind coaching my son? He could use some help. He's kind of struggling at the plate or just kind of struggling in general. I kind of know you went through some things. And I've heard you started to just coach people. So that's how my mental edge coaching process started because I was noticing there was pieces there that where there's just a missing piece of that game that nobody's teaching because nobody's really trained on it other than maybe they've read a book and they try to teach a tool or something like that. But really learning how to communicate and talk to the athlete one on one, and show some tough love when needed, kind of show them when they might be playing a little bit of victim mode. So I created the mental edge coaching program where I coach players one on one. So my normal program consists of just one on one coaching where we go heavy for the first about 2 months, about first 6 to 8 weeks, and I teach different tools that are in relation to what that athlete needs, in those moments. And so what I what I kind of noticed was, parents didn't care if I wasn't a sports psychologist. They actually appreciated that I actually have been there and done that as a major league player, had my struggles, and they knew that I actually have different certifications to go through and to help players. So I'll get to those in it here and eventually, but as I've coached at players one on one from ages really like 10 all the way up into college, it's been fascinating learning how these different ages work. And of course, the level of their communication and what they can say. It's obviously very limited, the younger the player. But when you start getting into college, now they've had the high school experience. They now maybe a freshman or sophomore in college, and now they've had that first experience of how maybe you're not a starter. you had to really, really fight for your position and you're still not starting. Um, or you feel the pressure more of performing, it's at a higher level. And so confidence can waver. Sometimes players have no tools or know what to do with that. And sometimes players just need to talk to somebody other than a coach on the team because they kind of have their biases. Not a lot of players want to go talk to the head coach because they're the ones that write out the the lineups each day, and you don't want to give a coach the impression that you're kind of struggling in your mindset. And so that's kind of what I've noticed. So there's a hole there. There's a gap. Um, that I'm aware of college programs, unless they're a very big college like SEC type program. My understanding is most don't have a mental coach to help go through that or a sports psychologist. So that's what I'm trying to help plug the gap there of creating a mental edge collegiate athletic type membership here where athletes can come live onto a call and help work through, just any mental game issues they're having. And so that's kind of my idea is to start these live weekly calls where players come on Zoom and they just simply raise their hand on Zoom. I bring them on live and I coach them. It might be a 10 minutes or so, kind of just talking. There could be other players listening on as this certainly grows. The whole idea of where I got this from is my wife and I are in a life coach group, and that's where I've learned this CTFAR model, this circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. Um, Kind of a funny backstory. I've been married to my wife for about 26 years now, and we have 4 kids. And she's been with me through this whole process. We started dating in high school since I was 15. So she knows everything about me, and she kind of knows that um, I struggled with still kind of dabbing into the past, kind of thinking about it a little bit, and it would get to me. It would kind of make me upset, and I would be kind of just quiet about it. In a way, not share that with anyone, but she knew, and so she actually mentioned to me, she's like, "Hey, you might want to check out this program. It's called the Life Coach School. They teach a model that I've been learning. This would probably help you, so you can kind of learn how to coach yourself." It can probably help you coach you through your past, work through those things, and then obviously maybe get some coaching through that. So that was the first time I've ever got coaching was going through this program and sharing just my past, kind of the thoughts and feelings I had about that and how I kind of learned. I was like, man, I kind of played the victim in a lot of this stuff, and which certainly didn't feel good to learn and recognize that. But man, once I learned that, it really lightened the load for me, and I was like, "Man, this simple little model," and this is just one of the models I coach and teach on. Um, this will be probably the main tool I teach through this process, and my whole goal would be to teach your college athlete um, how to work through and coach themselves when they have a problem, when they have an issue. So I think that's kind of our inner drive, right? As a person, the mental game is an inner thing. It's inside of us. And so I had all the physical tools and I did have a lot of belief in myself, but it certainly wavered. And at times I was like, man, do I really think I can play in the big leagues? Am I really that good? So those thoughts and feelings I might had at the big league level, your athlete might be having at the high school level or the college level for the specific thing. So there's a lot of doubts. And my college clients that I work with, that's exactly what they're going through. They have low confidence, maybe high anxiety. They have a lot of stress. They get really nervous. They really care about what their coaches are thinking, what their teammates are thinking. And so that's what I kind of lump that all into what I call interference. Right. So there's a lot of interference going on for this player. And when the mind is just consumed with all this stuff, it's hard to go perform. And so that's my goal is to teach players how to coach themselves. And it's been really interesting as I start getting into more group coaching when you hear somebody else talk and bring up a question or something they're going through. Of course, the other players on the call are like, "Oh man, that's kind of what I'm going through too." I'm glad that that person asked that question because I was really nervous about asking it. I felt dumb about asking it, and so it's kind of one of those things where um, you you're just kind of like, wow, I learned how to coach myself by listening to someone else be coached. And so this is a life coaching format that my wife and I are in, and we listen to this specific coach just coach people through their these are more life issues. Um, but I'm not shocked, but all these same things apply to what we're trying to do, and we're trying to perform in life and have a smooth, comfortable. Obviously, it's an emotional roller coaster up and down life as well. Same thing applies with the athletes. So when I got let go by the Angels, I did about 8 years of scouting, and it was actually a blessing in disguise because then I was able to start going into to coaching full time, and really start honing in on helping as many athletes as I can. Um, and obviously, there's only so many hours in the day. I do have my one-on-one clients. I do also have about 30 kids a week I do hitting lessons with. So I'm still heavily involved in the baseball side of things. But my passion really is helping players get out of their way. So I created the Mental Edge program, and so I've been coaching athletes now for a couple years, again from ages about 10 all the way up into college. And so I have sheets of pages like this right here of parent feedback, testimonials, and didn't want to. I just wanted to share three with you here. But I've been working not only because I was a baseball player. I've had many questions like, "Well, can you help my basketball player? Can you help my soccer player, lacrosse, my gymnast?" And so I've been able to help with all those sports because these are just tools that are taught and can be applied in any sport. And I don't need to be a professional or an expert in the sport itself to help your athlete. And so that's the cool part about coaching is I can help point out, can you see how you're causing your issue with the thoughts that you're having? And so that's where I feel like I can do a really good job of helping dissect, what might be happening for your athlete. And again, with the whole goal of getting them to coach themselves. Because when they're out, even if they're playing a team sport, they're in their individual mind, right? They're in their body, they're in themselves, and they need to go perform as themselves. So obviously the goal is to create that um, the inner confidence that's just off the charts, right, for them. So there's a couple things there. So one of my main tools is that again the CTFAR model. Circumstances are just neutral. These are events that happen to us. There's no drama attached to circumstances. They just happen, right? They happen in multiple times a day. So in baseball, every pitch is a new circumstance, right? Every play is a new circumstance, and so um, it's just fascinating how this process works. So the model itself, so the circumstances is the first part, and then in our brain, we're like, okay, what am I making this circumstance mean? And then all of a sudden, our thoughts come into play. And thoughts are just our interpretation of circumstances, right? These are optional phrases in our mind about circumstances. Okay. And circumstances are facts, right? There's no drama attached to those. So then our thoughts get involved, and then our thoughts are going to create F of the CTFAR is feeling. So our feelings are, we describe it as a one word emotion. So if you're like angry, mad, upset, happy, sad, joyful, discouraged, all these are one word feeling emotions. And so we break this down into the model. And why is that emotion? Why is that feeling important? Because the feeling of the A part of the model here is our actions, right? Could be actions or inactions, because when you feel a certain way, there's things we do and don't do, right? When a player's really struggling at the plate and they're feeling down, they're sad, they're even upset, they're discouraged, they're going to likely act a certain way in the box, right? Um, and then the R is the results. So the actions are going to create our results. Results are things we do that, we get from actions, but results are also evidence of our original thought. So our results are connected to our thoughts. So with the group coaching here, again, I've worked on trying to figure out the proper time and place, and everyone's a little bit different in college. I understand, but what I was thinking was because I'm in Las Vegas, I'm Pacific Coast time, that 9 a.m. would be a good place to start. And then as the group grows, to eventually possibly offer some more nighttime times and maybe on the weekend, like a Sunday night. Um, but I also wanted to be aware of the pricing and all that stuff for that. So the whole idea here is to bring them on live, right? Is these are going to be weekly coaching sessions. I'll create even more courses, and the goal would be to record the call, put it on there, where an athlete can listen to it anytime. To create courses, to create additional videos, and all the tools that I teach. I think they're very simple tools, but they're extremely powerful. I've learned over the last few years that if I make tools difficult, that they're likely not going to be done because they just seem overwhelming, right? So the whole goal here is to create and have a mental edge of your athlete specifically going through some stuff. So as you can see here, the cost is $50 a month. I want to keep it low. I charge $50 for a 30-minute lesson in hitting. I charge $100 for an hour of hitting. My one-on-one program currently at the time of this recording, I charge $700. And that's for a full year of one-on-one coaching, but it's very um, upfront loaded. I like to say that. And that, it's like about 6 to 8 calls up front, one time a week. And then an athlete has a full year to reach out to me and with any additional calls along the way. So again, I have a lot of those clients that are working through that one-on-one process. So your athlete could possibly be like, look, I think this is awesome. I want to do this, but I have zero interest in doing any group call or being on with other athletes. Um, so my question would be, I would totally get that, right? That's totally fine. That $700 price is going to go up as my time gets smaller and smaller to work with athletes, and so I'm trying to accommodate as many as I can in more of a group setting. There's only so many hours in the day, right? So, but $50 a month, most people can handle that. It's not even I think college students, from my understanding, the ones I've talked to said, yeah, I could handle that, no problem. Um, it's something you can cancel anytime. I'm not gonna have a requirement, hey, you need to be here for 6 months. Um, the program that I'm in with the life coaching part of it, that's a year-long program, and it's kind of a one-time fee that's just charged and reoccurred every year. Things could change. I might change that at some point. But to give you an idea, is that I definitely have coaching certifications. I want to make sure you're completely clear. I am not like a therapist. I'm not a sports psychologist. I did not go to school. I was drafted right out of high school, but I have, you could say, 20 to 30 years here of training my mind, of going through the life coach school. I have different certifications. MPM stands for Mental Performance Mastery, and then I just recently completed a Play Big with Dr. Tom Hansen. Tom Hansen wrote Heads Up Baseball, with Ken Ravizza, which is one of the better mental game books out there. And I've become really close with Dr. Tom Hansen, and he's actually, we had dinner the other night here in Las Vegas. He was in town, and he's considering me being one of his Play Big coaches to help coach the different coaches around the country that are looking to become a mental coach. And then the last one there is EFT tapping. Many of my athletes and clients have high anxiety. Tapping is one of the coolest tools I've ever seen, to help reduce that anxiety and to just kind of alleviate the stress that they're feeling. And I think definitely the college athlete is feeling and trying to work through that. So this is the mental edge. It's $50 a month, one time a week. Those can go up. Um, Obviously, we're trying to build confidence in the athletes. There's certain resilience, as you know, as a parent listening to or watching your kid play, that they've had that resilience. They've gone through the mistakes of trying to work through their mistakes, and they do a fantastic job. But sometimes they just need that little extra, whether it's a kick in the pants or it's just getting it out and kind of talking to somebody and working through their issue. So my whole goal would be for them to, your athlete to reach their goals. So where is this membership? This is, as you can see, this is on school.com. If you could search Mental Edge Coaching, if you can see it's a pretty new website. School is pretty new. a platform for content creators to create, classrooms and group coaching things. If you have additional concerns, anything like that, you'll see my email right here on the in the bottom left. I'd be happy to set up even a Zoom call with you as a parent, or even just talk on the phone. If you want to ask me any private questions about the program, I'd be happy to do that. Um, it would probably be more of an AM call, as I get pretty busy, um, roughly around 3 p.m. Pacific time with my hitting lessons. And then a lot of my calls are at night and on the weekends. So for you as a parent, I'd be way more schedule wise open to a quick call with you to, learn about your athlete, what they might going through, and to see if the group coaching part is right for your athlete, or if you're looking more into the one-on-one portion of that. So we could certainly, discuss that and see what best fits for you. You'll see on my toggle here, that's the website. I think you just click on that. I'm not sure if you can click on it and it'll go to it in this webinar, but you can certainly take a picture of that in on school.com/mental edge there. So I really appreciate you taking this time to. Hopefully, I wasn't too long-winded for you. But just wanted to share my story with you. I have a huge passion for this. My wife, again, who's been with me my whole career, she's she likes to bust me up a little bit too, and we have a lot of fun. But she's like, Chad, maybe your whole life purpose here wasn't maybe to be a pro baseball player and be the next Barry Bonds, but maybe it was to go through those struggles so you can be and have more value as a coach. And I didn't like to hear that when she said that at the beginning, but she's right. And that's been known because I've helped hundreds of kids over the last few years, and it is extremely rewarding. And I get texts almost daily from parents like, I can't thank you enough. And when you have that or you're involved in any type of coaching, it's a huge rewarding feeling. It's very fulfilling. So I'd love to be a part of your athlete's life. I keep in really close contact if I can with parents, more on my one-on-one clients. So, um, but yeah, follow me on Facebook, all that stuff, under my name. There's also Mental Edge Training Coach on YouTube and any where you get your Apple or Spotify podcast. So that's Mental Edge Training Coach. I've been a little lackadaisical with that because I've just been so busy, which is a good problem. But again, thank you for coming on, and I really appreciate you taking that time. Um, Email me if you want to talk to me personally before you sign up or do anything for your athlete. But again, thank you, and I'll see you later.